Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nate the Effing Great, and welcome to another exciting edition of The Game Changer. I am here to basically do whatever I can to change the game. So for this episode, I thought that I would actually do something a bit interesting, considering this is indeed the month in which we will have the premiere of the first ever women's pay-per-view, Evolution. It is just less than 2 weeks away, I believe it is. Yep, 2 weeks away. Son of a gun. It's pretty crazy. And WWE has not been doing that well of a job on it. The reason why I say that is because ever since October came around, it's never been about that. It was always about Crown Jewel and how, they got this championship is on the line, as well as this championship is on the line. Now we got the World Cup tournament, even though most of the people there are American, which makes absolutely no sense. Why wouldn't you just have maybe like 2 Americans, 2 people who are of Latino descent, and 2 people from Japan, something like that? Why wouldn't you do that? It's ripping. It's me. I'm sorry. It's me ranting, but it's one of those things where now, with all of the controversy that's going on with Saudi Arabia, WWE is going to have to learn to probably not do that. I think it's going to be one of those things where they're going to cancel doing Crown Jewel at Saudi Arabia. They might continue the event. They might go to the UK to do this. But it's one of those things where there's too much controversy and there's just too much bad things going on with Crown Jewel that I do not see this happening. I don't see it happening at Saudi Arabia, and I do not see that maybe even happening soon. So hopefully this is one of those things where they need to have the wake-up call to realize, hey, now this might be God saying, focus on WWE Evolution. Don't be doing this deal with Saudi Arabia. Do not overload. This is kind of punishment, maybe even. This is basically God saying, hey, remember when you did all those jokes about the handicap? Remember when you had me in a matchup? You remember when you did this? You remember when you did McMahonism? Well, this is where I am basically putting you through your own hell. If God had a sense of humor. I'm sorry, that was a little dark, but it's one of those things where it's like, this is too much karma to handle. So, with the way that it's looking right now, they have the Mae Young Classic, they have the SmackDown Live Women's Championship matchup, last women's standing match happening. They have Trish Stratus and Lita taking on Alexa Bliss and Mickie James. A couple of matches here and there, but nothing really too solid, nothing really too solidified. So it's one of those things where I look at it, I think to myself, well, there's so much more that they could do. So I'm actually going to take the WWE Evolution card, and I'm going to go at least about a month, maybe 2, beforehand, make these plans, hopefully they work out, and we're going to go really into heavily promoting this, of course, at the beginning of October, just promoting the crap out of it, definitely throwing some highlights here and there for women of the current roster and, all that other stuff. But let's talk about the event itself. So, guys, this is how I would book WWE Evolution. WWE, I know that I can do it better. So, we have to start with the pre-show. No 3 matches, no 4 matches, no craziness going on there. It's actually going to be headlined by 1 match, and it will be a battle royal for a shot at the Women's Championship. Now, it's not just the Women's Championship. It's not just the Raw, not the SmackDown. It also includes the NXT Women's Championship. So basically, the winner gets an NXT. The winner gets a title shot of their choosing. They get to choose which championship is on there. I'll explain why that's going to be changing up in just a bit. But during this entire pre-show, I would really have them focus on the women of WWE. During this whole ordeal, have so many highlights of certain women in matches, like the Trish Stratus, like the Lita, like, Jacqueline, like Ivory. Obviously, women who have been involved in the Hall of Fame. Maybe Alundra Blaze would be another one that you could put in there. Just really focusing on that. Because you remember back in the day, I think it was back in like 2004, 2005, they had this video on demand service called, I think, WWE On Demand, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about this. And they were promoting that like no tomorrow. They were basically saying, hey, you want to see classic matches? Hey, you want to see great matches? go to this service. I thought they would have been doing this with WWE a long time, but no, they've been so focused on creating new content, on bringing different things to it, just different programming that they've really forgotten why it was there in the first place, and that's for fans to benefit from it, because now they can appreciate WWE's history more. And if you do that during this pre-show, you're showing that not only do you care about the WWE Network, but you care about that history that you had in, with everything. You show great matches like Lita and Trish main eventing Raw, maybe Trish and Mickie James headlining WrestleMania. Definitely could show Charlotte and Sasha having some really good matches. Even show some matches from NXT. Just showing matches that really define women's wrestling. Do that, and you'll have more subscribers go to your network to see that, and you'll also show that you are really invested in this event. So, getting back to the Battle Royal, like I said, it's a huge Battle Royal to determine a number one contender for a women's championship, and they will be able to cash in that title opportunity during Survivor Series weekend. So, obviously, NXT TakeOver. I can't remember. I think it's NXT TakeOver War Games again, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to remember where Survivor Series. I think Survivor Series is in LA this year, if I'm not mistaken. I could be completely wrong. I'm probably wrong about that. But yeah, you feature women from Raw, from SmackDown, from NXT, and even have some maybe like quote unquote free agents or indie darlings involved in that. So that way people can maybe get like the nod, the rub on there, because now you're incorporating more women into this. You have women from all around the world. Hell, you can have women from the Mae Young Classic competing in that. You can probably throw in like Caitlyn and some other women involved in this. It'd be really cool to really see that. So ultimately, who would win? Well, I was originally going to go with Mia Yim. I think that she definitely is overlooked by WWE. But now looking back at it, right now, I think she still needs to really establish herself as a credible star in NXT. So I would keep her in NXT for a little while longer, let her build her up again, make her into that star that everybody knows she's going to be. And that is an absolutely amazing star. We need to see that. But who would I have win this? I would have the newly debuting Chelsea Green. There's rumors that she has indeed signed with the WWE Performance Center as well as with WWE. So why not have that moment be like a genesis in a new chapter of the women's division? And you can only do that by having Chelsea Green being involved in that. Honestly, you guys, I would also hope that WWE would do this. I know it's a crazy, and they're probably not going to do this. I would have only her do the flip pile driver. I know it's a bit of a risky move, but if you get the right women to do it, to take it, people will indeed get behind it. And it's still one of those, and maybe she doesn't even have to do it all the time. She could do it every now and then. She could do her unprettier. She can do the curb stomp. She could do all these great things. And it just goes to show, again, it's starting a new chapter. You're believing in women are indeed the future of the business. You're showing that with this Battle Royal. All right, so we go into the main card. We start off with the NXT Women's Championship. Honestly, I wouldn't change that one. I would still keep Kairi Sane versus Shayna Baszler in a rematch from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. And guys, I know they've been doing a really good job with promoting this matchup. Definitely go check out some of the promos that they have. They have Shayna Baszler basically talking about how she's been doing different workouts and she's trying to do different things. And Kairi Sane, she's still pretty confident, but I think in the back of her mind she's realizing that she needs to take this more seriously because Shayna is going to be a huge threat to her first title defense. So definitely incorporate that. So during this matchup, I would definitely have Shayna Baszler breaking out new moves. Maybe she does more technical submission styles. Maybe she does moves that you've never seen her do. Maybe she does she balances more of her athleticism into this. And for Kairi Sane, she definitely needs to show that she is still, small but mighty. I know that's a really cheesy thing to say, but she really is. This is a girl who took everything that Pentagon Dark had in an episode of Lucha Underground, and she put up one hell of a fight. So have that Kairi Sane being involved in this matchup, and it's going to be really can't miss, and it's a great way to start off the show. So for this, I would have Kairi Sane still retain. It's one of those things where it makes sense, and I just really would love to see Kairi Sane hold the title belt for a little while longer It would be cool to see Shayna Baszler become the first ever 2-time NXT Women's Champion, but also during the show, it will be one of those things where I would love to see Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey kind of in a backstage deal where Shayna says, I couldn't get the job tonight, but I know you're going to do well tonight. Just having that kind of moment there where Shayna Baszler, she has all of this, all of this, egomaniacal deals. You definitely see that. But after this match is over, Kairi Sane, she hits her signature elbow. Actually, she does it 3 times during this matchup to finish off Shayna Baszler, and she earns Shayna Baszler's respect. She realizes, she's been humbled, she's been defeated, and she admits defeat. She admits that Kairi Sane is the better champion, and she extends her hand out. Kairi Sane and them shake hands. They don't hug. No. Shayna Baszler just lifts her hand up, admitting defeat, and again being humbled. I think that would be a really good way to do that. So the next matchup I would have on here is a bit of an interesting one, because when I think of Evolution, I think to myself, well, they could actually do some very interesting matches on here. And what better way to do that than to also have a great cross-brand matchup? Now, this will probably be the only one on here. I know it's a little bit risky, but at the same time, I'd give it a shot. I think it'd be a really cool matchup. And that being Alexa Bliss versus Naomi. Because here's the thing. At this point, Alexa Bliss does seem like she's injured. I think they mentioned that she's got some issues with feeling in her arm or some kind of nerve damage, something like that. So you need to have her work with somebody safe. And honestly, Naomi is somebody who is a safe worker. I can't think of anybody else who I would be comfortable putting Alexa Bliss in that spot than Naomi. I haven't heard Naomi, doing injuries. She's definitely great in the ring. She'd be a safe worker. And there's also a story there that can be told where Alexa Bliss can mention, her first 2 women's title reigns were, they were great. They were blissful. And that the glow was the one thing that stopped, her from reaching the full potential of being the greatest champion of all time. So she wants to get revenge on Naomi. And to my knowledge, I don't think that Alexa Bliss has ever beaten Naomi in a one-on-one matchup, because the last few matches I remember that featured them were, I think it was a 6-women's tag at Royal Rumble. It was a singles match between the two of them at Elimination Chamber, and then they had that huge 6-pack challenge, I think, at WrestleMania. I think it was a 6-pack. I think it was. This matchup definitely is really good. We see the athleticism of Naomi combating against the speed of Alexa Bliss. In the end, with a little bit of interference from Mickie James, Alexa Bliss picks up the victory. Alexa Bliss now feels like, she can move away from this chapter. But it would still be one of those things where it's like, hey, you were reliving a great feud here that WWE provided. So why not just make that into a highlight? When TNA did the, Destination X shows, there were a lot of times where they went back and they realized, hey, this is focused on the X division. Let's also have the focus be about some of the greatest deals. And they brought in, AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels. I think they had Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe. I know that's a weird one, but they were both X division champions, so it makes sense in a weird way. So that's my reasoning behind that. Next up, we have the Mae Young Classic. Honestly, you guys, I am going to be passing over this one. A little bit of lazy booking, but it's just one of those things where it's like, I can't just pick 2 people out that I would really want to win. I think that no matter what the booking is for that, it's always great. So I can't really just pick 2 people out of the 16 women that they've chosen to, compete in this. So whatever WWE does for this, I'm sure it's definitely going to be wonderful. That one I will definitely still keep as just the same. But I'm not going to go into spoilers because nobody likes a spoiler. So we go into the next matchup, which is a bit of an interesting one, but it's basically, the present versus the past. We have Nia Jax versus Jazz. The story behind this one is that Jazz wants to help Nia Jax become that irresistible force that she once was, where she was just beating people left and right, and she was just creating a lot of, destruction in her path. Because she's noticed that, and I definitely noticed this too, that Nia has gotten a little bit soft. She's definitely gotten a little too, happy, too comfortable with it. She needs she's definitely one of those women that needs to get back on that warpath. And having a match with Jazz definitely would do that. So Jazz is trying to help her reach that. And she still sees it, but she feels like Nia Jax can go just a bit further. So she challenges Nia Jax to a match at WWE Evolution. And honestly, you guys, I really like Jazz. If you don't remember her phase back in, I think it was 2003, she did this deal with Teddy Long where she basically did that catchphrase of, the bitch is back and the bitch is black. I loved that. That's what I would incorporate into this. Just having Jazz having that, tough attitude where she just takes no prisoners. She's just very strong. Honestly, and even if WWE has like some bad relations with Jazz, have her just come back for the 1 month. It would just be a small short-term deal. She gets her money, and she puts on some really good matches, with it culminating between her and Nia Jax at WWE Evolution. I don't see any issue with that. So, matchup happens, and we definitely do see Nia Jax still getting a little bit aggressive, but she's still not quite there yet. So it's kind of one of those things where Jazz is taking everything that Nia Jax has, but Jazz knows that she's not giving it all. She's basically telling Nia Jax, I know you can do better. I know you can hit harder. I know you can bang me down. And there comes a point where Jazz actually slaps Nia in the face and spits in her face, and that sends Nia over the edge, where she just goes completely ruthless. She just goes absolutely berserk on her. She hits her, Samoan drop, does the 3 leg drops, then to finish it off, maybe she hits a new move. I would love her to do like a jackknife powerbomb, because I think that'd be very brutal, and I think that'd be really fitting for her character. So she hits a powerbomb on Jazz for the 1, 2, 3. Jazz, after the matchup, Nia Jax, she's still got that fire in her eye, everything. Jazz, again, she basically says to her, don't lose that fire. Do not lose that, because that's how you're going to become champion again. She offers a handshake to Nia Jax. Nia Jax, out of respect, shakes a hand, and then Jazz raises her hand. It's kind of one of those things where it's a bit of a passing of the torch. It would be really cool to see that. That's just my opinion. I think that would be absolutely amazing. So next up, we have another matchup where it's the present versus the past. We have Carmella in action. I know some people might not like this, but I know one co-host of a certain rant that would love this. Carmella basically is the Heath Slater of this show. Now, let me explain a little bit, because this is going to be a lot different. She still does the whole deal where she challenges women from the past to get involved with her and fight her. Honestly, women that would definitely be good opponents for her would be Tori Wilson, Kelly, maybe even throw in a Lunder Blaze. And Carmella is just on this rampage where she's saying, I am indeed the future, I am indeed money, and I will prove that at Evolution. So at Evolution, she's saying, hey, bring it on. I can take on anybody. It doesn't matter who you are. Let's do it. And who will come out? You hear the music of, you're not enough for me, just another man in love with me. Michelle McCool makes her return to the WWE after being first seen at the Royal Rumble. Now we see her back in action here as she takes on Carmella. It's a good matchup between the two of them, one of the best of Carmella's career, but in the end, Michelle McCool picks up the victory. It's another one of those situations where Carmella is indeed humbled by the past, and Michelle McCool, she gets on the mic and she talks about, you are indeed still the future. You just need to have your head on your shoulders. You cannot just think that, you are going to be above and beyond just by yourself. You need to have support not only from friends, from family, you also need to have support from the WWE Universe. So it's kind of one of those things where, again, it's another passing of the torch, and this could be Michelle McCool's last matchup. Honestly, it's one of those matches where you basically have the woman who is all about, being a diva in the past, you have it against the woman who's all about being a diva in the present. So it's one of those things where it makes sense. It kind of writes for itself. So, yeah, I kind of like it. I kind of want it more and more now that I think about it. So we go on to the next matchup, which is for the Women's Tag Team Championships. This is the first time ever that these are being, created. They are basically, they introduced it about a month before the show even happens. They get into this nice little tournament. The best of women from Raw, the best women from SmackDown. I may have lied when I said that Alexa Bliss versus Naomi was the only interpromotional matchup, because this is the second one that would be involved here. During this match, we have the Riot Squad taking on the Iconics. And in the end, guys, the Riot Squad is indeed going over, but just barely. This is one of those matches where we see the Iconics at their best. They just had a great victory over Asuka and Naomi at the Super Showdown. They are on a wave of momentum right now. They continue that momentum all the way until WWE Evolution. They get stopped by the Riot Squad, who definitely have been very talented. They were really good in the ring. But I think that the Riot Squad are definitely more deserving because of the fact that they just look that much more impressive. But it's still one of those matches, like I said, where the Iconics look like $1,000,000. They give it their all. We see new moves demonstrated by Billie Kay and Peyton Royce. But in the end, the Riot Squad picks up the victory, and they are the first ever women's tag team champions. It just is beautiful. And plus, two teams that were in NXT. Well, okay, one team that was from NXT. It's just one of those things where it sounds really good. I really like it. And I'm hoping that's kind of what we get at WWE Evolution, but I guess not, because there hasn't really been too much follow-up on a women's tag team championship. So we'll have to wait and see. Damn it. Alright, so next matchup on the card is Sonya Deville versus Mandy Rose. This is a bit of an interesting one. I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, well, why would you put that as one of the matches on this card? Because it is really to evolve one of them, and that being Sonya Deville. I have said this on Twitter so many times that I do believe that she is indeed the future. She's going to be a future women's champion, and it definitely starts right here. And basically the story is kind of writing itself. It's in those situations where, Absolution is slowly dying. Sonya realizes that she's kind of being held back by Mandy Rose, and she doesn't do an attack. She doesn't attack her on an episode of SmackDown, but it's one of those situations where Sonya Deville says, I have a great way for us to be a part of WWE Evolution, and that is to have Sonya Deville versus Mandy Rose. Mandy kind of chuckles, like, you're kidding, right? You're kidding. And Sonya's like, oh, I'm not kidding. I'm dead serious. And it's one of those things where Mandy's just like, well, I mean, yeah, I think it'd be really good to kind of see that. We give them a first time ever. We give them something really good. And she thinks it's, just going to be like two sisters basically battling it out. And Sonya makes it seem like, oh, yeah, we're totally going to just do it kind of like exhibition style. But as soon as Mandy leaves, or when she has her back turned, you just see the look on Sonya's face where you just realize she's slowly turning heel. Something in there is, warping in her mind, and we just don't know what it is. So the matchup happens. We see Sonya Deville come out first. Mandy Rose, she comes out with her music, and just before the bell rings, we see Sonya Deville attack Mandy with a flying punch. You can call it a super lady punch, a super girl punch, whatever you want to call it, just a flying punch out of nowhere, and that kind of takes Mandy for a loop, and she's kind of all confused. She's like, what was that for? And this is where we, of course, see Sonya Deville really, show her true colors. And, of course, Mandy's just saying, okay, you want to fight? Okay, let's do it. So, bell sounds, Sonya Deville dominates. I know people are going to really hate that because there are a lot of Mandy Rose fans, but having Sonya Deville be completely dominant in this matchup really does help her credibility. She's basically showing that she is not going to, that all the weakness that she had was because of Mandy Rose. She's basically trying to just focus all that energy, all of that pent-up rage, all of that aggression on Mandy, basically trying to eliminate that. And we see that. We see her do a lot of, MMA style. She does her punching, she does kicks, she does everything. She is basically just showing a different side that we never thought she'd see. She locks in a new submission move. Honestly, I think she could do a really good Rings of Saturn, but maybe it can be it's definitely got to be a move that involves the arm. Maybe Tommaso Ciampa's old submission maneuver where he had both the arms behind, that kind of deal, or kind of like a Fujiwara armbar, something where it involves, Mandy Rose's arms. So locks it in, Mandy Rose taps out Sonya Deville Bill picks up the victory, and Sonya looks like she's about to leave, but we see her lock in the submission maneuver again. Referees are trying to pull her off. You see, Mandy's just screaming in pain. She only gets like a few seconds of reprieve. Sonya Deville backs up. She bypasses through all of the referees. She locks in the submission maneuver again, but then we see her just do like a twist to Mandy's arm, and basically it's one of those situations where, you hear the ladies say, I thought I heard a snap, and, Mandy is just writhing in pain. She's holding her shoulder, and she, saying like, I think it's dislocated. I think it might be dislocated. And Sonya Deville is just completely relentless. She doesn't even show a smile. She just looks down at Mandy, and you can definitely tell she's proud of her work, but she never smiles. She just looks at Mandy, gets out of the ring, and there can even be a backstage deal where Paige basically says, what the hell was that all about? Why did you do that? And she just looks at Paige, and then she does like a little bit of like a, little weird chuckle deal, and just walks away. And that's the main thing. She never says a word. She never explains her actions. She never explains, what she's after. She just goes out there and she takes it. It's one of those situations where it works. And I really would love to see Sonya having this kind of dark side to her, where she just goes out there and takes names and kicks ass. I know we got that with Becky Lynch, but having another one that can kind of be a polar opposite, like the yin to the yang, for Becky Lynch to maybe battle in the future, I think that would actually be really cool. Next matchup on here is the Bella Twins taking on Lita and Trish Stratus. I know, a lot of people would really love to see Nikki versus, Ronda for the Raw Women's title, but trust me, I got a bigger plan for that. And obviously, having the tag match with Alexa Bliss and Mickie James seems like a really cool idea, but at the same time, it just doesn't feel special. Having the Bella Twins taking on Lita and Trish, to me, that just screams pure nostalgia. Because you have the workhorses of the women's division in Lita and Trish taking on basically the women who claim to have brought in all the fame, all the glory, all the honor to the women's division, the Divas division, being Brie Bella and Nikki Bella. So the build-up for this is actually interesting. So we have the Bella Twins basically talk about, we're facing off against these two legends, but can they really trust each other? I mean, they even mentioned a couple things that Lita and Trish have done to each other. They talk about how Trish, made fun of Lita while she was, pregnant with child, and even basically calling her fat, and bring up these deals where showing again the ruthless, aggressive nature that Trish Stratus had, as well as her just being a complete, fully blown heel, and she was really good at that too. And then they can talk about how Lita was basically of course the Queen Bee. She was the Queen of Extreme, and she always outshined Trish Stratus when it came to in-ring ability. She always did more, and let's face it, she basically showed that she could make love better than Trish could, even on her best night. Having those little deals there just really make it really good, and it just turns the screws and makes things very interesting. And honestly, for Trish and Lita, they can still have a little bit of friction between the two of them, just maybe talking about some of those things, but then they mention, it's in the past, we're looking towards the future, we're friends now, and we're going to definitely take these divas down. And honestly, the build-up to Evolution, the final Raw for Evolution, Lita and Trish, basically they just show the clip of Brie and Nikki having battles with each other, and then just having that line of where Nikki tells Brie that she wishes that she died in the womb, and they just ended by saying, we may hate each other, but we at least never wish death upon each other like you two did. And it's kind of one of those things where Brie remembers that moment, and she has this facial expression of just like, I've never forgotten, and I've never really truly gotten over that. So Nikki is basically trying to say, hey, look, don't let them get to you. Don't let them get to you. And Brie, she actually leaves on her own because she's still kind of, confused. And that's one of those things where it's like, so the Bellas thought that he could put the screws to Lita and Trish, but Lita and Trish just put the screws to the Bellas. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, well, now it's going to be interesting to see how these two teams, work at Evolution. We get to the matchup. It's an instant classic. We see Nikki at her best, and Brie is giving her absolute best. And, there's some moments where they're worried, like, will Brie knock out Lita? Will she knock out Trish? Will she do this? And there is a little bit of that concern, but Lita and Trish, they prevail. They really do. Trish hits a Stratisfaction to Nikki. Lita hits a Twist of Fate on Brie. Then we see Lita hit a moonsault to both Brie and Nikki. Dual pins, 1, 2, 3. The Bella Twins are defeated, and Trish and Lita win. I know, there's a lot of people that are definitely not going to like that, but it's one of those things where this has the makings of something very good. So, there's that. Na boo boo. Next matchup we have on here is Charlotte versus Asuka 2. So, a lot of people are kind of confused. Well, why wouldn't you have the SmackDown Live Women's Championship matchup? Why wouldn't we have the Last Women Standing match up there? I would have had that match at this week's SmackDown 1000. That is when I would have the match between, because you need to have something big to make it remembered by, because you can't just rely solely on the nostalgia factor, on the stars that are going to be there. I mean, they're incorporating Evolution, they're going to be bringing in The Undertaker, they're probably going to bring in Cena, they're probably going to bring in so many of these other people that it's one of those things where you just need to have a really good matchup to have people go home happy. And plus, it's the build-up to WWE Evolution. You got to have something that can make them say, okay, well, if they're going to do this on SmackDown, what are they going to do at WWE Evolution? And in all honesty, it's another story that writes itself there. Charlotte versus Asuka. It's the rematch from WrestleMania that they never really had. So Asuka is looking to find redemption. She admits that, hey, I have basically been I've basically been on a really bad, run ever since I lost to you. You are the one that kind of maybe that. So I feel like I need to beat you in order to get back on, to move past that loss. So Charlotte agrees, and we get Asuka versus Charlotte, which is one of those matches where it actually goes a little bit further than their WrestleMania matchup, maybe like 5 minutes more. And it's still a really good matchup. Charlotte goes in for the figure 8. She locks it in. Asuka is able to get to the ropes this time. Referee gets distracted, and Asuka actually spews a green mist in the eyes of Charlotte. And she locks in the Asuka lock, and Charlotte passes out. So Asuka goes into a little bit of a heel deal, and we get another matchup between Charlotte versus Asuka slated for the future, because now you basically have the matchup in which Asuka is a heel who believes that she's going to win by any means necessary, and Charlotte, who basically is saying, I respected you and I wanted to give you this rematch. Now respect me and give me this rematch. And Asuka just can be like, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that. Because I beat you, I already proved it, I am moving on to bigger and better things. And we get the rematch maybe at Survivor Series, where it's a submission match between the two of them, and that's kind of like their big climax. I think that would actually be kind of cool to see that. But yeah, Asuka versus Charlotte 2 happening at Evolution. I think that would be another one of those deals where it's like, hey, we got another matchup in which it showcases that WWE cares about the women's division. So then we go on to the main event. And this is one of those things where there's a reason behind it. So the main event matchup is the Raw Women's Championship. Ronda Rousey defending against the SmackDown Live Women's Champion Becky Lynch in a title for title matchup. So, obviously, the brand split has not entirely worked, but it does have its highlights. especially within the women's division. They, of course, had their first ever SmackDown Women's Champion. They had the great feuds with Sasha and Charlotte. They had a couple great feuds with, Charlotte and Becky are doing some really good feuds. But honestly, guys, there's very other little feuds there where it's like, yeah, this is really worthwhile. This is really good. So the brand split for this has not exactly been good. And to kind of really put in perspective how I do feel about the brand splits, I can't put it in my own words because I can't do it justice. So putting the women's titles in this matchup is better because here's the issue, is that, well, I think it's better that I just let someone else explain it to me. So ladies and gentlemen, here to explain it to you guys a little bit more is a little bit of an excerpt from a video from What Culture featuring the one and only Mr. Adam Blumpy talking about the brand split. And this is kind of how I felt about the brand split, and it kind of puts it to a T. So guys, bear with me for just a bit, and here's what he's had to say that I fully agree with.
Again, I cannot stress it enough. The worst thing that WWE could do is just arbitrarily split the roster, moving them to either sides of a gym, like some sort of PE teacher that's been doing the job for 20 years, and he just sees these children come and go, and they stay young, and he's just growing older and older. He looks down at his hands, and he sees wrinkles that he's never seen before, and their youth just tortures him, and he eventually just loses the will to live. He realizes that this is all you've got. This little fistful of years, this is all the time in the world, and you're wasting it. You're wasting your entire life. So Jimmy, just for God's sake, pass me my special flask. Coach needs his medicine. Well, that went places.
So yeah, other than the last point of that going to different places, having the women's division back together is something that I am encouraging to happen, because then you'll get the chance to see all the women together and having them basically, they're not being, just being less featured on one show or on another. So, honestly, people would think that, maybe they should just get their own show. In all honesty, there is a show that can definitely work for that, but I'll talk about that in just a minute. So, the matchup, like I said, it's Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch. The build-up to this is one where it seems like it could write itself, but you do need to actually hit some really fine key points to this. The matchup basically gets announced after SmackDown 1000, where Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey will battle to unify the championships. There can only be one women's champion, one alpha in the women's division. So it all ends with a huge promo between Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch on SmackDown. So the SmackDown building up to Evolution, like I said. So we have this build up, and it's basically a shoot promo between the two of them. This goes on for maybe 10, 15 minutes at most, where Becky Lynch talks about how she has, scratched and she has clawed. It has taken her years to get to the point where she is at right now. And of course, for Ronda Rousey, she's only been in the WWE for the blink of an eye, and you're already getting opportunities. You're already getting, championships being presented to you, where I've had to actually go out there and win this and earn this championship. Basically, Becky Lynch is just covering her entire career and some of the things that she resents about Ronda Rousey's career. And for Ronda Rousey, she can have a comeback for that, where she says, yes, you've been doing this for years, but ever since day one that I've stepped foot in any ring, whether it is the WWE ring or a UFC ring, I have indeed been something that people have talked about. And since day one that I have stepped foot into an octagon or into a ring, I have given it my all, and I have proven to be somebody that cannot be messed with. I have proven myself. I have earned my spot here. It's not one of those things where I was just given it to it right away. I had to basically earn that spot. And, like I mentioned, hey, I had a bit of a cameo deal at WrestleMania 31. They could have put me then, but no, I was still committed to the UFC to really keep them, at the point that they need to be, so that way that when I leave UFC, they can be in good hands. So now that I'm in WWE, I'm trying to basically do the same thing where they can be in good hands, and she can make the statement like, the way you've been holding on to that championship, the way you've just been holding yourself as champion, you're making it seem like you deserve everything just because of the fact that you were a part of a huge name. Because I think that one of the reasons why you're mad isn't because of the fact that you have scratched and clawed and earned, right, and you've got nothing for it. I think the reason why you are mad is because you were a part of a group, a 4 horsewomen group, and they can definitely mention that, say like a horsewoman group, not the horsewomen group, in which you were always one of the lesser of the people that people will remember. Basically taking a shot there, saying that obviously people remember Sasha and they remember Charlotte, but you were definitely still one of the horses that were still in the back, almost to never be seen again. So I respect you for wanting to earn that spot, but the way that you're holding yourself now is not how a champion should be represented. She talks about that. It's just one of those things where they have a really good back and forth promo between the two of them, and it ends not with a brawl, no, because that would be too predictable. We get a deal in which Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey, they basically say, you know what, we both have valid points, but obviously one of us is going to win at Evolution, and one of us will indeed be the true champion of WWE. So Becky Lynch offers a handshake, Ronda Rousey accepts it, Ronda's about to leave, but Becky Lynch pulls her back in, and we have that classic stare down between the two of them. No fights, no fighting, no punches thrown, no words, just the two of them staring at each other, and you just feel the heat, you just feel the intensity between the two of them, and that is how SmackDown ends before Evolution. So you, of course, have the highlight videos in which you show Becky Lynch showing her highlights for her deal as the SmackDown Women's Champion, how she's changed the women's division. I have a great highlight video for Ronda Rousey where she basically talking again about how she's been changing the name of the game since day one, where she talks about her UFC stuff. We show some of her stuff there. We show some of her highlights from WWE. We do stuff like that, and honestly, it's a matchup in which you have probably the irresistible force meeting the immovable object, because these two women are definitely going to give it their all. So the matchup is getting ready to get started until JoJo makes the announcement, or it could even be Lillian Garcia. I would personally have Lillian Garcia be the announcer for this entire event, and Lillian Garcia, before the matchup even starts, she says, the following contest is scheduled for one fall, and it is a title-for-title match for the SmackDown and Raw Women's Championships. He does the introduction, and then we see, a production guy comes up to Lillian, whispers something to her, and she makes the announcement that I've just been informed that this matchup must have a winner, so therefore there will be no disqualifications, no countouts. Winning can only be obtained by pinfall or submission. And these two women just go absolutely crazy on each other. We see Ronda just punching and kicking and do everything she can to keep Becky Lynch down. We see Becky Lynch do her technical prowess move. She does, again, a Pentagon arm breaker. Oh my gosh, I would love to see her do that on Ronda Rousey, because that would be a thing of beauty. I love that move. I just really do. So we see the two of them, bring in chairs. We see the two of them basically having the most brutal women's championship matchup of all time, in all honesty. We see Becky Lynch lock in Ronda's arm in an armbar, maybe on the table, maybe through a chair, maybe on a chair. Basically, they're just fighting all throughout the arena, just laying it all on the line. In the end, and this might not be a popular decision, I would have Becky Lynch go over. Because here's the thing, Ronda is indeed a special attraction, but she doesn't always need it to win. This is one of those situations where I think it's better to have somebody who is going to be there for a while win, and to have somebody that's only going to be there for probably a blink of an eye. Because if the rumors are true and Ronda's only going to be there until 2019, then it's better to start building up your women that are going to be here for a while. So we have Becky Lynch pick up the victory. Becky Lynch, she locks in her, disarm her multiple times. Ronda Rousey locks in her armbar submission maneuver only 2 times. First time she barely gets it on, and the second time she gets it on, but Becky Lynch is able to fly out of it, and then Ronda's just thinking, well, what the hell do I have to do to finish her off? Becky Lynch, after all the abuse that she's given to Ronda, she locks in the armbar to disarm her, and this is one of those disarm hers where she just cranks and cranks and cranks so hard. Ronda Rousey, unfortunately, passes out. Now, I know this is kind of one of those things where you see this back to back, and people are going to be like, well, what's the point of that? Because we're still trying to build up the credibility of Charlotte as well as Ronda. Because this is where we start planting the seeds of having these two women be, starting to face off at WrestleMania. So, we do that by having this matchup. They both lost in similar fashions, but they both prove that they are tough. So, we have Becky Lynch as the unified women's champion. And the night after, we have just one women's title. I would just keep it as the red one, just because the women's division is going to be going to Raw. All the women are going to be taken there, and honestly, SmackDown's worried, like, well, what are we going to fill up? Well, you have a tag team division you can work with. You also can work with the cruiserweights. Have them be a part of the show. Maybe you have a deal where Drake Maverick and Paige make an agreement where, SmackDown stars, like 1 or 2, go to 205 Live to make it more watchable, and also having 205 Live stars come to SmackDown, so you fill up the gap there. Now, that is how I would book WWE Evolution. Guys, thank you so much. My dog just came in, so she is just a happy, happy girl. Hopefully she doesn't poo or pee anywhere. So, that is how I would book WWE Evolution. What are some matches that you would like to see on the WWE Evolution show? What are some dream matches that you would like to see in women's wrestling, period? Just let me know in the comment section below. You know where to like us on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, and thank you guys so much for listening in. I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Also, happy birthday, Victory Bell. Have a great one. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.